Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of talktainmentradio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on talktainmentradio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on talktainmentradio.com, radio, the way it should be heard. I'm Brother Kahari, and I sit in every week, just about every week, with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. He is the author of two of the most definitive works. Let's welcome in Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, how are you, sir?
I'm still learning.
Mr. Fuller, tell us how we can get your definitive works, please.
You can get the basic book and the word guide, which is an addition to the basic book, by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And what should come up on your screen is a brief description of the basic book, which is a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of white supremacy. And then there is a compensatory counter-racist word guide. That's an addition to the basic book. And that's a book that has words in it about how to use words in a compensatory counter-racist fashion, what questions to ask about words that other people use, etc., etc. It's similar to a dictionary, but it's not a dictionary. It's a word guide that will help the individual person, better understand and use words in a manner that will best counteract, hopefully, the system of racism and hopefully replace that system with the system of justice, which would mean, in a compensatory fashion, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help in all areas of activity. That's what the books are designed for. And they are addressed to the individual person. Organizations, people who are members of organizations can use the books, but as individual persons. They are not addressed to organizations. That's why I call it the compensatory code concept. Individuals need something that addresses their individual problems because people are individuals before they are members of anything. And so I address the individual victims of racism in both of these books. The individual person who is a victim of racism.
Mr. Fuller, what does an individual mean? Is that different from being single? Is that different from being one? What does the word individual really mean, especially in the context of white supremacy?
It means the individual is not, you can't divide a person. A person is an individual. Even twins, when they're born, they're individual persons. Even though a person will say, well, they are just alike. They're not just alike because they are separate persons, sometimes even with their heads joined together, because of some discrepancy of some type. Sometimes people are born with their heads joined, but doctors will immediately start figuring out a way to separate the two so that they become individual persons. Now, they can interact with each other once they are individual persons, like all people interact with each other as individual persons, but no person should give up his or her individuality. Each person has an assignment. That's a hypothesis, probably hasn't been proven for sure, but it's a reasonable assumption that every person that appears on the planet is unique, that there's no individual person on the planet that's exactly like another person on the planet. Each individual is different, and that difference should be given regard to. People shouldn't be just lumped together and assume that one person is exactly like another person. The fact that there are two people with two sets of hands and ears and feet, a brain, two people, that should be recognized and should be given serious regard to, because not even twins, like I've said before, think exactly alike. They're not thinking the same thing at the same moment all the time. They're not doing the same thing at the same moment all the time. So that is easily recognizable right away. This should be given serious regard to, and people should be recognized as individuals, and then they interact with each other in a constructive manner. In fact, there's an old proverb that says, "He who does not know one thing knows another," which means everybody's supposed to contribute what he or she knows that can contribute to a better society when they interact with each other. And individuals should only interact with each other when they have something constructive to say or do. That's the way the world should be run. It's not run that way, but it should be run that way. That individual people only interact with other individual people when there's something constructive to say or do. Otherwise, they should remain, you might say, quote, unquote, isolated individuals until they can think of something constructive to say or do. That way you have a guarantee that when people interact with each other, the result is always constructive. That's what we should be headed for, under an umbrella we might call the quality relationship, versus what we have now, the tragic arrangement. And I gave, in the compensatory codified word guide, I gave a title to this tragic arrangement, or rather I broke it down. The people of this planet right now interact with each other in a very tragic manner. And that's tacky, trashy, and terroristic. And it doesn't get any better than tacky. Even at very best, the people of this planet right now, under the system that we have, which is a system of racism, the very best you can squeeze out of that, the very best, when people are acting at their very best, it's still very tacky compared to what it ought to be. And when they try to improve on the tackiness, then it becomes trashy. And if they try to improve on the trashiness, then it becomes terroristic. And we've gotten to the place where we glorify terror, and we glorify the trashiness, and we glorify the tackiness, because that's what we're used to. All of the people on the planet are used to those type of interactions all day long, wherever they happen to be. And it doesn't get any better than tacky, even in the very, 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 very best of situations. It's tacky. Tacky compared to what? Compared to what it ought to be. Because we are in a system that's designed to produce those results. What's the name of that system? The system of white supremacy.
Okay. Now, just an update. The NAACP seems to be kind of embroiled in something right now. It says this is from a website. The article's called, the website is called The Corner. It's from the National Review Online, and it says, it's rare for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and the Congressional Black Caucus to fall on opposite sides of a political issue, but the Internal Revenue Service's proposed regulation of 501c34 groups has put them at loggerheads. What's going on is that it seems like the NAACP and the Black Caucus are on different sides of this issue. It seems that the legislation that is being proposed that they want change from the IRS would reduce it would classify the day-to-day activities of social welfare, voters' education, nonpartisan voters' registration, and get out to vote activities, and it would limit the amount of those activities permitted under law, which means it would really bring a halt to many of the NAACP chapters around the country. They might lose their nonprofit status and a host of other things. Now, what's so funny is that all this is taking a place under the Obama administration. All of these things that are just like, I don't know if we talked about it here, but black colleges, with the changing of regulations under Obama administration, they petitioned him over and over again to change certain regulations. It's caused black students not to be able to go to black colleges, and black colleges have lost almost between 50 and 100,000 students as a result of it. And the administration is not changing those guidelines. Same thing is happening with this IRS thing and the NAACP. If that doesn't change, you may have NAACP branches that will lose their tax-exempt status. It's just the strangest, craziest stuff going on right now, Mr. Fuller. Let me get your thoughts. I don't know if you've heard about this, but let me get your thoughts on this. Mr. Fuller.
I haven't heard anything about it, but I do know that we are in one system. We have one system of government on the planet that's effective, and that's the system of racism, unfortunately. The business of government on this planet is done on the basis of what color a person is. And unfortunately, there are a large number of white people classified as white, who have made the decision that the business of government of the entire planet will primarily be motivated by what somebody thinks about what somebody's color is, and it's called racism. So therefore, everything that is done in all areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, will be done on the basis of, first consideration is, there'll be other considerations, but the first consideration is, what color are the people? And we're not going forward until we determine what color the people are who are going to be affected by whatever is being done. And if the people are classified as non-white, then they're supposed to be dominated by people classified as white for the purpose of fun, glory, and general material exploitation. And that's the system that we have in place. There is no other system on the planet. None. Zero. All these other so-called systems are just what you might call non-existent, or just labels, or at very best, they are subsystems to the major system, which is a system of white supremacy. And this is unfortunate. But what you're talking about is just a result of this. The white supremacists stay in power based on direct violence and indirect violence. Indirect violence is the use of confusion. So by making these different laws and all like that, and saying, who's tax exempt and who's not, and now you see it and now you don't, these type of things, up and down and around and about and whatnot, and running in a circle, is to cause confusion. Confusion among whom? The victims of the system of racism. Because you can dominate people easier when you can keep them confused. If there's two people in a room and one person is confused about just about everything, and the other person is not confused about just about everything, the person who is not confused is the dominant person in that room. That's the brains of that room. So it's a very simple formula.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to keep people, in a way that's subject to you, first order of business, if you want to do it on a long-term basis, is always interject a lot of confusion in their minds, so that they will always have to come to you to deconfuse whatever the situation is. And then what you do is just hand them another plate of confusion. And, of course, if you're very skilled at it, you can disguise what is on that plate so that they'll think that the confusion is being cleared up when really it's just another different set of confused elements.
Well, let me go a little bit more into it. It says, while the NAACP last month issued a harsh critique of the controversial regulations, warning that they would cause many of the group's regional branches to lose their tax-exempt status, every member of the Congressional Black Caucus that cast a vote on a House bill that would have delayed the implementation of the regulations for a year opposed the measure. As drafted, the proposed regulations would cause the primary activity by any measure of those of the NAACP unites to be counted. Unites to be counted as candidate-related political, with the result that most branches and conferences would lose their tax-exempt status. That's what's going on. But all of this is happening under, now some of this, they were examined under the Bush administration, but never this double whammy of the black colleges falling down, losing 50 to 100,000 students because of some regulations coming out of the Obama administration. And now the IRS, which is under the Obama administration, coming up with regulations that could hurt the NAACP, plus the loss of Acorn, a few years back, and a host of other things. It appears that a lot of the black organizations that were in place that many black folk looked to, followed for years, long before we had black politicians, that's who black folks were most heavily influenced by. NAACPs, the Corps, SCLCs. These were not politicians. It seems that the whole shift now is to dismantle all of those organizations and shift all influence to black politicians. This is real strange, and I don't know if anybody's observing this, but I want your comments on that, Mr. Fuller.
Well, it's to be expected. I mean, you don't give strength to the people who you continue to victimize, and you have as a purpose your intention of continuing to victimize people based on color. So no matter how you mix and match it, you can just change the chairs in a building and all like that, but your objective is the same. You can change the people. You can change the label outside the building and so-called organizations. I mean, all so-called organizations come under the system of white supremacy if those so-called organizations are supposed to be run in behalf of or run by non-white peoples. You're under the system of white supremacy, regardless of what the label says. Black Caucus, that comes under the system of white supremacy. NAACP comes under the system of white supremacy. A black president comes under the system of white supremacy. It's all the system of white supremacy. Any way you shake it up and pour it, it's going to come out that way. And that's all you have to do is just walk into any situation. It's there, whether you see it or not. It's there. The white supremacists are operating full tilt. There's no such thing as a so-called, quote, unquote, independent organization that black people have, non-white people, anywhere on the planet, organization, country, province, town, whatever. If it's non-white, it comes under the system of white supremacy. And this is what we have to realize and understand. Therefore, we'll forever be walking around scratching our heads as, why is this happening? Why is that happening? It's all under the same system. You have to get rid of the system, really, the whole system, all of it, and replace it with a system of justice. But in the interim, you always assume, in a situation you walk into, oh, this is just the white supremacists at work. I don't care how you shake it up and pour it. I mean, when you look around, and you don't have to look very far, I mean, if you really know what you're looking at and seeing what you're looking at, you'll say, this is just another white supremacist setup. I mean, they are allowing. Now, the people who are there may be sincere, both white and non-white. There are white people, presumably, who don't believe in racism. But those white people are part of the only system of government on the planet. Like all of the non-white people are part of the only system of government on the planet. It's not like 3 or 4 systems. All this talk about, you got socialism here and you got communism there and you got capitalism over yonder. I mean, no. You have one system of government on this planet. This is something everybody has to realize if we're going to get anything done. And that's the system of white supremacy, which means dominating and mistreating people based on color. That's all that it is. There's nothing else. So we don't have to keep going around on these circles saying, now, what organization is doing this today? What organization is doing that today? What is the Black Caucus going to do about this, that, and the other? No, you ask, what are the white supremacists going to do about this, that, and the other? Because that's the only voice that counts.
Okay, let's go to a caller. Caller, you're on the air with Mr. Neely Fuller. Go ahead. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead. Okay, well, I thought we had a caller. I guess sometimes when you think you have somebody, you don't have them. So you see that this is what this is all about, is just trying to create some conflict, leave people confused, having them fighting amongst themselves. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Fuller?
Just another scheme to do that. That's the first suspicion. It's the usual suspects. Now, there's no way to prove it because there's nobody to prove it by. I can make these statements, but I cannot prove these statements. If I was going to prove these statements, who would I go to prove it? I mean, just name someone that I could go to. I can't prove it. But if you just look at things as an individual person, which is what I address my works to, my books, just go and look, because I always say, don't believe anything that Neely Fuller says. I mean, he might be a crazy person. He might be a hired gun by the white supremacists, even to say the things that he's saying. But just walk into any situation yourself and keep your mind clear and try to be objective. Don't believe anything that anybody says until you go and take a look yourself.
Okay.
Become a part of everything that's going on, and then see what you come up with yourself.
Okay, Mr. Fuller, I believe we've got the caller's return. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Okay, sir.
Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead. Caller, you're on the air. I wonder if we're having some. Anyway, I'm sorry about that, Mr. Fuller. Go ahead. You go ahead and complete what you're saying.
Yes. In fact, I have a basic statement. How does one find racism? By looking for it everywhere, in all areas of people activity. That's how you find it. You got to go in looking for it, because it's there. I mean, there's no way that you're going to come out of that situation, according to what I'm saying. And if you're looking for it, you will see it. You're not looking for something that's not there. If you're looking for it in any area of activity, economics, education, walk in any educational system, anywhere on the planet that's worthy of being called an educational system, you'll find the white supremacists right in the middle of it. Okay? Walk into any so-called economic system. I don't care what you call it. You can give it any kind of label, because they give economics all kinds of labels. Just walk in and see what the controlling factors are. And you might have to stay around a little while. You have to dig, because the white supremacists are masters of deception. They are master magicians. They know how to make things look like they are not. They know how to put plenty of cosmetics on everything. They are the masters of cosmetics. Wow. They're the masters of artificiality.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So when you walk into any economic setup and say, oh, now this is separate from anything that I've ever seen. This is completely different. No, it isn't. It's the white supremacists running it, if it has anything to do with non-white people. Educational systems, same thing.
All right,
These are people with the intention of doing harm or running it. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, let's open up and take a call. Caller, you're on the air with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to ask.
I can barely hear you.
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Okay, I would like to ask, would Mr. Fuller explain where he said that you ought to ask questions before you get involved in a relationship?
Okay. Caller, I'm really struggling to hear you. Mr. Fuller, can you hear him?
I cannot hear him at all.
Yeah, caller, you're going to have to speak up. We can barely hear you on this end. I apologize for that, but I've potted you all the way up, and I still can't hear you. Go ahead. Try it again.
Could you ask Mr. Fuller about relationships?
Mr. Fuller, I'm sorry, go ahead. You want me to ask Mr. Fuller about relationships, is that right?
He said you ought to ask questions in relationships, right? So I want to know, he said something in particular about asking a woman if she's been involved with a white person.
Oh, okay. Mr. Fuller, I don't know if you heard him. He said there's 200 questions I think you had said you've lectured about that one should always ask, and in particular, one of those questions should be if that person that you intend to see or involved with has been involved with a white person. Am I correct, caller?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sexually involved.
Sexually involved. Intimately sexually involved, yes.
Oh, sure. You want to know that. You want to know if a person that you are going to be involved with sexually, you want to know if that person has been involved with anyone else sexually, particularly a white person, if that person that you're talking to is a non-white person. That's important to know because sex is a very, very powerful motivation. And it's not just the sex act itself. Sex is a political act, meaning it affects people's minds. It affects people's perspectives on the world. Whoever you go to bed with and have sexual intercourse with will affect how you think in a lot of ways. And in a world that's dominated by the system of white supremacy, if a non-white person has sexual intercourse with a white person, that non-white person's mind is affected by that act, whether that person is aware of it or not. It has an effect. And so if another person, a non-white person, is going to be involved with a non-white person who has had sex with a white person in the system of white supremacy, the person should know that. That should not be a secret in order for them to have some type of orderly understanding of how the person that you are in bed with thinks. People who are in bed with each other, having sexual intercourse, should know how the other person, one person to another, both people, should know very well where the other person's mind is, how that person has evolved. In fact, you should know as much about that person as you can possibly know before you ever get in bed in the first place. And what does this do? It creates a better, or rather it evolves into a much better interaction between people so that you later on you don't have this, I didn't know that, I wish I had known, because it's the lack of knowledge of whom you are in bed with that brings about conflict later on. This is why you have all of these maximizations of conflict between male and female, mostly throughout the entire planet, because of 3 words. I didn't know. These are the 3 words that keep coming up. I didn't know this. I didn't know that. I didn't know that you liked to gamble. I didn't know that you didn't believe in going to work, on certain days because you want to go fishing. I didn't know that you had AIDS. I didn't know this. I didn't know that. If I had known.
Mr. Fuller, both callers, stay right there. I'm going to get to both of you. This is the compensatory concept heard exclusively on talktainmentradio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard.
talktainmentradio.com is the premier internet radio platform offering 40-plus talk radio-style programs professionally produced, optimized for online distribution, featuring Columbus, Ohio on-air personalities. Talktainmentradio.com offers listeners diverse programming options covering topics such as arts and culture, love, life and relationships, technology, religion, paranormal activities, local and national politics, women's issues, alongside health and wellness. Listeners can access their favorite talktainmentradio.com programs free of cost through the website. Download the TTR app to your cell phone and you can take us wherever you go. We have programs on demand to fit your schedule through our podcast. The address is talktainmentradio.com.
Hi, this is Michelle from the E. Michelle Lee Show on talktainmentradio.com. Join me and TTR May 18th, 2014 as I host the first annual Walk to Cure FM Ohio at Wolf Park in Columbus, Ohio. 1K Fun Walk, 5K Run. Brought to you by the National Fibromyalgia and Chronic Pain Association. A day of awareness filled with activities, education, inspiration, brunch awards ceremony, entertainment, and more. Special guest speakers, Tony Terry's wife, Ronnie Terry, a sufferer of fibromyalgia, and Jan Chambers, president of the NFMCPA, and me, E. Michelle Lee, your host. Join the event on Facebook, PR with a Purpose. Get the details all about the walk, how to register, everything you need to know for Sunday, May 18, 2014, Wolf Park in Columbus, Ohio at www.prwithapurpose.com.
Hey, Carol, that's your third espresso. What's going on?
I've just been to my doctor, and he's ordered lots of tests. Blood work, scans, x-rays.
Why? Is everything okay?
That's just it. I don't really know the whole story.
Well, I think the best thing you can do is get more involved in your own health care and get some information.
How do I do that?
One of the most important things you can do for your health is to ask questions. Be an active and informed member of your healthcare team. Remember, your healthcare is about you. For starters, you should ask what condition you're being tested for, how the tests will be done, how soon you'll get the results, and what happens after that. Learn more about what questions to ask about medical tests and other aspects of your health care. Get the brochure, Be Prepared for Medical Appointments, available at ahrq.gov/consumer. That's ahrq.gov/consumer. A message from the U.S. Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality.
For more than 50 years, the U.S. Small Business Administration has been helping entrepreneurs become large, successful companies. Many of these you recognize: Under Armour, Jenny Craig, Outback Steakhouse, Restoration Hardware, Ben & Jerry's, Nike, Sun Microsystems, FedEx, Hewlett-Packard, just to name a few. SBA's programs and services provide an advantage to help small businesses effectively compete in the marketplace. SBA can help you start a business, from creating a business plan to providing loan guarantees. Training and counseling programs are offered on our site 24/7. See if you're ready to start a business or ready to expand through federal government contracting or exporting. Whether your business is on Main Street or cyberspace, possibilities are endless. SBA, helping small businesses start, grow, and succeed. You can check us out at www.sba.gov.
This is Malek Harut, bringing it true. Join me on The Kinsman for intelligent conversation with a touch of inspiration. Coming March 26th, the 50th anniversary of the once-in-a-lifetime meeting of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. Was the great earthquake that occurred the very next day a sign from God? Find out on The Kinsman, Wednesday, March 26th at 6 p.m. on talktainmentradio.com.
Did you know that people born from 1945 through 1965 have the highest rates of hepatitis C, but most don't know they're infected? People can live for decades without symptoms, but over time, hepatitis C can cause serious health problems. If you were born during these years, the CDC now recommends that you get a blood test for hepatitis C, so talk to your doctor and find out if you have hepatitis C. It could save your life. No more.
Hi, this is Bob Petrakis. I host Fight Back, and we're moving. Yes, that's right. We're moving to Monday night at 8 o'clock. So if you want to stay up on all the insider political news in the city and you want to fight back and stand up for democracy, join me on Monday at 8 p.m. on talktainmentradio.com, the world's greatest radio. That's a new time, 8 p.m. Monday night.
We're cracking down on Medicare fraud.
The health care law gives us powerful tools to fight it,
to investigate it,
prosecute it,
and stop criminals.
Our senior Medicare Patrol volunteers
are teaching seniors across the country
to stop, spot, and report fraud.
You can help.
Guard your Medicare card.
Don't give out your card number over the phone.
Call to report any suspected fraud.
We're cracking down on Medicare fraud.
Let's make Medicare stronger for all of us.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
You got the power.
This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on talktainmentradio.com, radio the way it should be heard. Mr. Fuller, let's turn to you now in this second half of the show. I'm sure you've had some things that people you've talked to during the week, and there's some items or issues that you might want to bring up. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Well, it's really nothing special that I can think of right now. People bring up so many things, just like the gentleman just brought up about how you can improve interaction between males and females. That's always a problem. And so that is the one that I have advanced over and over again. And that is, it's a very simple formula, something that most people don't do and don't even want to do. But it will clear up a lot of problems if people just make an agreement. That should be a part of what we might call the culture, standard culture worldwide for all people, that before you get in bed that first time to have sexual intercourse, that you know everything that you have an answer, rather, to everything that you will ever want to know about that person. That the first time you have sexual intercourse, you already know everything, every question that you will ever ask. Every question that you will ever ask. No questions will be asked after then. That's the way it should be. That's the ideal circumstance, because you have already gotten the answer to all of the questions in front that you will ever ask about that person and what that person has done. You will know all the person's likes and dislikes. Or you'll know what the person is prone to do because the person has told you, and you have told them. The habits that you have, the habits that you are likely to have in the future, the habits that you used to have that you think might be creeping up on you again, like a smoking habit or a drinking habit or a philandering habit. I mean, the person should know all of this. That, you tell the person, at one time I was kind of flamboyant and I was a playgirl and whatnot. And every now and then I get those urges again. And so she is supposed to tell the fella that might come back, because she does have that tendency, always has had it. It comes and goes and whatnot. You got an old roving eye, or it might be the fellow who's saying the same thing, or both of them may be that way, or just one or the other. But both parties should know every answer to every question that they will ever ask before they get into that bed the first time. Now, that will slow things down, but maybe things need to be slowed down, because people jump into things that they regret too often. And they come up with those three words, like I said, I didn't know. You keep hearing that over and over again. Many people have said that if they stop and think about it themselves many times. I didn't know. I didn't know he was like that. I didn't know she was like that. I didn't know that she, was so like to just hang out with her sisters so much. I mean, that she put her sisters before me. I didn't know she was like that. I mean, I'd never been around her sisters. We were always just alone together. But now when we hooked up, then all of a sudden, her sisters are telling her everything about what she needs to do about me. I didn't know that she'd buy into that. I mean, so her 5 sisters are running all our business, and it's driving me crazy. I didn't know. If I had known that, I never would have got hooked up with her in the first place. And on and on and on. Everybody has stories to tell like that for the most part. Some of them big stories, some of them mini stories, and some of them just a few trivial things. But you should know everything that you can possibly know, everything that you want to know. And then you'll have what we call a quality relationship, because quality relationships don't really exist among people on this planet. That's why you have so much fighting going on. That's why you have so much killing going on. That's why the divorce courts and whatnot are always full. And that's why people are hooking up and then breaking up, hooking up and breaking up, and hooking up and breaking up over and over again. It's lack of knowledge and understanding. And what does this come from? Not enough questions were asked and answered truthfully and voluntarily before anything serious evolved.
Okay, Mr. Fuller, we have a caller. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. Good morning, Brother Kahari.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 questions.
Okay.
My first question would be, what visual symbol would best symbolize justice?
What visual symbol, Mr. Fuller, would best symbolize justice? That's a very interesting question. Mr. Fuller?
Oh, no symbols of justice. None. I mean, you just practice justice, which means every situation that you're in, you try to guarantee each and every day. That's why my book is addressed to individuals. You look around and you say, wait a minute, is anybody getting help that they need? Everybody here. And who is the person that needs help the most? And is anybody being mistreated? Because these are the guarantees you're supposed to get in order to come up with that formula that produces that thing called justice, which has never been done, by the way. And that is guaranteeing that no one is mistreated. That's part one. And guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. And so you don't need symbols for justice other than the practice of justice itself. That is your symbol. Each and every person, wherever he or she happens to be, and everybody is somewhere all the time. So the question that should be in your mind when you're around people, is anybody here being mistreated? That's question 1. Question 2, does anybody here need help? Out of 10 people say, everybody needs help, because you can make that assumption. But who needs the most help? And what is the nature of that help? And so you find out who needs help the most, because you always start with the person that needs the most help and work back. That's in an office building. That's in a job situation, on the warehouse and whatnot. That's in a little club that you belong to and whatnot. That's in your church. That's in just riding a bus.
All right, caller.
I mean, on a trip.
Caller, you said you had a second question.
Yes, sir. That's all right to ask?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and ask your second. Uh-huh.
All right. Now, I'm from the continent, so-called Africa, and I was wondering how I would go about explaining the system of racism, white supremacy to people in rural areas who only see perhaps maybe 3 white people a year.
Well, give me an idea of where you are in on the continent. What area?
I'm not there right now, but I'm originally from what's known as Kenya.
Oh yeah. Nairobi, around that area.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, and so you want to know, how would you tell black people on the continent, more specifically in an area called Kenya, how they would understand white supremacy when most of their interaction is with black people from governing on down? They only see 3 white folks a year. Mr. Fuller?
Yes, sir.
Take the basic textbook. That would be the first thing I would say. I mean, I'm not just touting what I have written, but I'm saying that would be a start that I would recommend, because that's exactly what I would do if I was in your position. I would take the textbook that I have written, the basic textbook and the word guide, because whatever language the people might speak in that village and whatnot, the dialects and whatnot, I would try to translate as best I could what is in the word guide, and also the basics that are in the basic book for the victims of white supremacy. The word guide and the basic book, because this is why I wrote the books. I wrote them for all of the non-white people who are victims of white supremacy that are on the planet. Now, there are non-white people who will say that they are not victims. And one of the first things you say to them is that, well, if they perceive themselves as not being victims, then the book is not for them. The concept is not for them. But if they're complaining about anything, then you discuss whatever it is they're complaining about, and then you show them the connection between what they're complaining about and then these things that are going on outside of their village that are bringing about the problems that are in the village. And these things always leads to one door, the door of the white supremacists. And you explain that to them. You don't try to indoctrinate people. By indoctrination, I mean telling people things and then saying, you have to accept this because I'm saying so. Override your own common sense, or override your own doubts. You don't tell people to do that. You tell them that you're just revealing this to them and you want them to think about it. That's all. Just think about it and see by their experiences and by their own examination, is this true? If they, first of all, just starting with the problems that they have. That's what you always start with, because counter-racist logic is about solving problems. Our presence on the planet is about solving problems. But like I said on the back of the book, no major problem can be solved among the people of this planet without first solving the problem of racism. Why? Because that is the major problem on the planet. People being mistreated based on color. That's the major problem, and all other problems flow from that. Now, that's either true or false, but I say it's true.
Well,
okay, caller, does that answer it?
Yes, sir, that does answer it. I do have one last question, but I can definitely wait for I guess a second turn.
Go ahead, as long as it's quick. Go ahead.
All right. Now, Mr. Fuller has described the system of white supremacy as the strongest religion on Earth, I should say. Now, if we are trying to replace it with a system of justice, are we swapping one religion for another religion?
Yes.
That's a very good question.
Yes. We are swapping the religion of white supremacy for the religion of justice. And what is the religion of justice? That's guaranteeing that no person is mistreated, white or non-white, short or tall, male or female. No person is mistreated. We need to center on that if we're going to have that thing called justice, because we're talking about the religion of justice. That's what you will call it. We'll say we're going to have a just religion before we start considering, all of the ingredients of all the other religions. Why not have a religion of justice? Or why not make the religion of justice, even if you say it's a sub-religion, and incorporate it into whatever religion you already have? Because if you don't have a religion of justice, where you're going to try to guarantee that a person is not mistreated and guarantee that the person that needs help the most gets that help, then what is the religion for when it comes to people? Now, a person might say, well, the religion is to worship our God. Okay, well now, you do this, but you can still treat people correctly while you're worshiping your God. Why rule that out? Why not incorporate that in whatever religion you have by whatever name? Say that the one thing we're going to have in our religion, we're going to try to, as best we possibly can, guarantee that no person in this village, no person that we encounter is mistreated. We're going to do everything we can to guarantee that. And we're going to do everything we can to guarantee that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Now, everybody needs help. Everybody needs help. When you get up in the morning, I don't care where you are on the planet, you need help. You need help in gathering up the fishing nets. You need help in getting the canoe repaired. You need help in driving the car. You need help in finding your way to the nearest filling station. You need help all day long from some way, some kind. But there's always somebody who needs help in any group more than everybody else. So everybody centers on the person that needs help the most and then work back. If you got 10 people in a room, you ask everybody to hold up their hand and say, who needs help? And everybody will hold up their hand. Then you say, well, now, person number one, how much help do you need? Doing what? And so by the time you get to person number 10, it might turn out that person number 6 is the person that needs help the most. So you start with person number 6. It's a very simple formula. And clear up that person's problem. Then you go to person number 4 or person number 8, in whatever order that the person needs help the most. Then finally you get to the last person. That's the person that needs help the least. That's the person with the fewer problems, and you work on that person's problems last. Now, people basically do that. When it comes to the sound of an ambulance, people pull over on the highway to let the ambulance through. Now, we understand that when it comes to that. We'll say, oh, well, it is an inconvenience. I got to pull over, and I'm almost late for work, but I'm going to have to pull over and let this ambulance by. Why? Because that person needs help the most. That person just got their legs cut off in an auto accident further down the highway behind me. And now the ambulance has picked up that person and is trying to get that person to the hospital as soon as possible. Those legs dangling off of that person's body. Now that person needs help the most. And everybody on the highway recognizes that. That's why they pull over. They heard the siren. Let the person through. It's an inconvenience for everybody else. It slows things down. But everybody understands that, because that can be you coming down that same highway that evening, coming from work. Now your legs have been damaged in an accident and need to be attended to. So you want people to pull over, not just block the traffic and say, well, I did it once this morning, I'm not doing it again this evening. No, you do it again that evening. Help the person that needs help the most. That should be a universal principle everywhere. And that should be a part of the thing that we talk about in every government and in every religion. Justice. And describe it in those two parts. Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated, and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. I underline the word constructive, because some person may come and say, oh, I need help. And say, you need help doing what? Well, I'm short of cocaine, and I want some more cocaine because I need some help getting some. I can't find my dealer. Well, that's not a constructive enterprise. So you tell the person that, oh, you don't really need that kind of help, because your help is not constructive. That's a very important word. You want help in doing something that's non-constructive, and we're not going to help you do that. Now, we will help you get away from your habit so that you can do something that's more constructive, like chase around trying to find cocaine all day. That's not constructive.
Okay, Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, I think we have another caller. Caller, you on the air?
I'm sorry, I just got disconnected.
Oh, okay then. I thought you were finished. Are you finished? Did you have?
No. Yes, I am finished, and I just wanted to thank Mr. Fuller for his time and for the constructive answers.
Oh, okay then. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Mr. Fuller. We've got just about 5 minutes left. Any thoughts on which way this thing is trending? We're kind of at a lull, if you will, of big major events right through here. Even the news agencies are scrounging, trying to find something to report. They're just making up stuff, it would appear. But right now, things are kind of at a lull. Do you have any sense about what that means and which direction this thing is going to go, Mr. Fuller?
Well, it just seems like there's a lull. The white supremacists is always working, even when everything is dead quiet. They are not dead quiet as far as what they are doing is concerned, and that is exercising their muscle, practicing what they do best, and that is mistreating people based on color. As we speak right now, there are people in total agony in places like Uganda, the dark-skinned people, everywhere, all over the planet, Brazil, in every city, people are hurting. No jobs.
Lives are being destroyed.
Right.
Yeah.
Lives. Carjackings. As we speak right now, somebody's snatching somebody's pocketbook. Some grandmother, is being beat up on a bus stop. While some person who is drug crazy is trying to snatch her pocketbook away from her and pounding her in the face while he's doing it. That's going on. That's going on everywhere. It's going on here. It's going on in Philadelphia. It's going on in Oakland, California. It's going on in Uganda. It's going on everywhere. It's going on in Brazil for sure. Gunfire and whatnot as the people run through the little narrow streets and whatnot and trying to get enough of whatever it is that they need to get through the day. And then sometimes just out of anger, just lashing out at whomever happens to be nearby, and gang fights and gun fights.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Fuller: should we take guns away from black people?
No, we should do what we're doing now: try to educate as to why all of this is, and say you don't kill anybody in some type of robbery, and stop trying to condone thieves and robbers. We don't do that. We need to stop doing that. Be a beggar. People who are in the Christian religion say that's what Jesus basically was. Mm-hmm. He didn't even have a place to stay. He was born in a manger. So you ask the people who have things for what you need. And those people, for non-white people, would be the white people. The white people who believe in white supremacy. Because they are the ones who own everything. You might, not own, they possess it. On the planet that's worth anything. Diamonds, ships, airplanes, money. They are dominant over it all. So running around carjacking people and doing this, we need to stop that. Go directly to the source of if we've been taught to all try to be capitalists, well, how do you get capital? You ask the people who have it. If you're not an inventor, and you're not a thief or a robber, and you shouldn't be a thief or a robber, and if you haven't invented anything, then that leaves you one other option for acquiring capital, and that is to ask the people who have capital to give you capital, because that's the only way to get it, according to logic. It's not talked about in schools that way, but it's just that simple. 3 ways to gain capital. You invent something that people want or need, or you rob or steal, or you ask somebody who has it.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Appreciate you always.
Thank you.